I now call the April 9th, 2019 meeting of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Board of Education to order. First order of business is the adoption of our agenda. I will now entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor of the motion for the adoption of the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. I now turn to our pledge. We now have our Pledge of Allegiance, and I turn to Ms. Rhonda Cheek, board member from District 1, to introduce tonight's pledge leader.
Thank you. Tonight I have the honor of introducing Preston Oliver, who will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and discuss this month's character trait, which is perseverance. Preston is a second grader at Parkside Elementary School, where his favorite subject is math, followed by literacy. He is energetic, enjoys soccer, playing video games, watching action movies, and riding his hoverboard. I'm pretty impressed with that hoverboard riding. I probably can't do that yet. Preston's mom has noticed significant academic improvement since he began attending Parkside last school year after the family relocated from New York. With a lot of encouragement from his family and through his own perseverance, Preston's mother says he is well on his way to reaching his full academic potential. Preston is accompanied tonight by his mother, Natalie, his family members, Tiffany, Edu, Stephanie, Anaya, Ethan, and Savannah. Hello. The Northeast Superintendent, Northeast Learning Zone Superintendent John Wall has escorted him down to the podium. Principal Diana Newman is here. And teachers Peggy Bloomquist, Christine Davis, and Shakira Belmont, and that is who Preston attributes his academic success to, those three amazing teachers that he has working with him every day. Preston, if you'll go ahead and speak to us tonight.
Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Yes, sir.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, and indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Okay.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Preston Oliver, and I am honored to have been chosen as pledge leader. This month's character trait is perseverance. According to the Webster Dictionary, do people still use that thing? Perseverance is the continued effort to do or achieve something despite difficulties, failure, or opposition. To me, perseverance is learning how to read. My mother made me practice reading daily. I used to read Dr. Seuss books, and now I'm reading chapter books.
Hey.
Perseverance is also learning how to ride a bike without training wheels. That was the longest 24 hours of my life. I thought I was never going to get it and kept telling myself I couldn't do it. My mother pushed me and told me to stop saying I can't and to start saying I can. And by the next day, I was riding a two-wheeler. But by far, the hardest task I needed perseverance for was learning how to swim. I'm still working on perfecting my breaststroke during the hot summer months, but I will not give up on becoming the next Cullen Jones or Michael Phelps. Right. No matter how difficult a task is, always try your best and never give up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Would Preston's family and teachers who are his school family all stand up so we can recognize you?
Very good job, Preston. You really represented Parkside, so thank you. Next on our agenda is the notification of the cancellation of the May 28th, 2019 Board of Education meeting. I just want to announce that the May 28th, 2019 meeting of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Board of Education is canceled, and The short reason is because we have, the following week, we have a board meeting on June 4th, and we do that because of all of the graduation dates that we have on our calendars. And so there was no real reason to go on and do the May 28th, and then the following week have the June 4th meeting. So we're just doing everything on the June 4th meeting. So thank you all for your patience with that and understanding. We now move to our public hearing on the superintendent's 2019-2020 budget recommendation. Each speaker will have a maximum of 2 minutes to address the board. You may talk about the superintendent's 2019-2020 budget recommendation. No personal attacks will be allowed. No profanity or inappropriate language may be used, and the board reserves the right to cut off any speaker who violates these rules. I will call the following individuals to come down to the microphones, and please speak in the order in which you are called. Justin Parmenter, Pamela Grundy, Jordan Montgomery, James B. Lee, and Amanda Thompson. And we have 2 mics, so you can spread yourselves accordingly. Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Justin Parmenter. I'm a teacher at Waddell Language Academy, and I just wanted to come here to thank you all for this year's budget recommendation tonight. As Dr. Wilcox points out in the document, it's a substantial investment, but I think that it's one that's also consistent with our community's priorities, as well as with the belief that public education is the most important lever for change and is the best chance we have at increasing economic mobility for the children that we serve. I especially appreciate the move to increase support services staffing, adding more counselors, social workers, and school psychologists. You know, we're still pretty far off the national standards there, but I think we need to keep moving in the right direction and you know, doing what we can year in and year out. My colleagues and I are working on encouraging our General Assembly to do more also to support these efforts, and hopefully we'll stay tuned on that front. I also wanted to mention some concern about the addition of the SROs that the budget calls for. I wonder how much the ratios of our support services staff would look and the students that they serve would look if we were to use the money to hire additional counselors and psychologists and social workers. I wonder how many of the goals that the SRO positions handle, such as resolving home issues and behavior problems, encouraging positive relationships among students, could be accomplished by support staff whose workloads are a little bit more reasonable than what they currently face. I think it's going to be crucial for us to listen to community input on this matter and also to look at the research and figuring out what are the best ways to support our students and keep them safe. I also wanted to thank you for the proposed salary changes that the budget calls for. Last year's supplement increase was a good start, for sure. It was the first in 6 years, but I think the cheeseburger image was right. I don't know anybody who was able to quit their second job over a 1% salary increase. I think this year is going to make a huge difference in a lot of lives. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Good to see everybody. I want to echo what Justin Parmenter said, that there are a lot of good things in the budget. It's really working to focus on real needs, including teacher salaries, including more custodians, et cetera. That's very important. But I am also concerned about the funds to expand the number of school resource officers, especially because it's in elementary schools. I don't believe this is the best way to, as your budget calls for, focus on core issues. Increasing the number of school resource officers whose core training is in law enforcement addresses the symptoms of a violent society, primarily fear, rather than the core needs of students and families. It suggests that law enforcement is such a challenge at these schools that the district needs to put a significant chunk of their scarce resources into that particular function. I don't believe that's the case, and I don't believe that's the message the district really wishes to send to students and to families. Schools would benefit more from greater investment in counselors and social workers whose core training involves dealing with the major challenges that students and families face, challenges such as food insecurity, housing instability, physical, mental health care, and so on. I was listening to someone talk the other day about lessons he had learned in combat when everybody's life was on the line and all decisions mattered. One of the things he said was that you should never make a decision out of anger. Another, perhaps more relevant in these fear-mongering times, was never make a decision out of fear. I urge you to focus on what our children really need. Thank you. And I will just note the counter's not counting down on this, so that it was hard to know where I was.
Hello, my name is Amanda Thompson. I'm an educator, a parent, and a community advocate here in CMS. I am here today to say thank you and ask for your continued support. First, thank you for your budget that is moving in the right direction of respecting educators and placing needed investment in resources that will benefit all of our students and families. Thank you for holding community forums that allow stakeholders to understand and ask questions about the budget. I would like to also speak about May 1st, a day that was designated as a day of action for public schools in North Carolina. Your budget investments truly reflects and align to the 5 asks that we as educators, parents, and community have our legislators, and will head to Raleigh on May 1st to do so. We are lobbying to invest in people, to provide for our students with resources and successes they need to be successful. We are lobbying for the state to pay a minimum wage of $15 for all employees. That includes cafeteria workers, secretaries, custodians. We are also asking for an investment in our retirees and demanding a reinstatement of their health benefits as well. We are also lobbying for an expansion of Medicaid. Your own Breaking the Link information showed a huge impact on how attendance affects achievement of students. Unhealthy students cannot learn, and unhealthy parents cannot sufficiently take care of their children. Lastly, like CMS, we are asking for an investment in student support. We too are lobbying for the state to provide additional support for social emotional health for our students, and asking that our state meet the nation's national professional to student ratio. Imagine how safe our schools would be if we were more proactive than reactive in meeting their needs. In closing, because our goals are so aligned, I am personally asking you to join the thousands of CMS educators and families that will be in Raleigh this year on May 1st. With your support, we can not only get our priorities right at the local level, but we can change them at the state level as well. Together, we will be advocating for and working to win schools that our students deserve. When we win, you all win. And more importantly, our students, brown, black, and white, win as well. Together, let our actions match your investment in equity, people, and support. Join us, Raleigh, on May 1st.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson.
As our kids needs us. Strong students, strong schools, strong community.
Thank you. Jordan Montgomery. Is Jordan here? Oh, okay.
My name is Jordan. I'm a 7th grade student at Ransom Middle School. The reality I know best is school. School is somewhere you're supposed to feel safe and positive about your future, but many stories we hear are not so optimistic. At schools, you hear about children feeling fear and sadness and anxiety related to school shootings, and we can measure it. According to the Washington Post, the year since 2000, more than 250 people have been killed in schools, more than 200 wounded. Last year, the shooting in Parkland, Florida, left 17 people dead, and there were shootings estimated every 2.5 days in 2018. This reality became more real for me when a nearby high school student was shot and killed over a dispute. 3 months later, to find a weapon in my own school campus. Hopes and prayers would not change the reality. And now we know that officers will not change this reality. When I think of school, I think about the number of children who are excited to go to school and learn. I think about the number of teachers who can spend more time planning experiments than learning about after-school drills. Kids are tired of not being heard by administration and teachers. They are tired of people who can make the impact on these school issues saying things like, we don't have enough funding. Kids need resources, mental health resources, 20% of adolescents may experience a mental health problem. 50% of mental problems are established by age 14. 10% of children ages 5 through 16 years have clinically diagnosed mental problems. Yet 70% of children and adolescents who experience mental health problems have not had appropriate interventional resources. We are not giving students access to resources that can help them and decrease so many mental health issues that lead to things such as school shootings. So let me suggest conflict resolution, a simple step before things get too bad. Kids don't feel safe at school. People are not paying attention to their problems, and that's the reality of so many kid situations. We also think about what we're doing to help each other to measure up to a new reality, and it isn't officers. It's social workers and psychologists.
Thank you, Jordan.
Thank you.
James Lee.
My name's James Lee. I don't see how I can follow those two amazing young people. You know, that's why I'm here. The city council and the mayor, they know me. The county commissioners, they know me. I've met Margaret Mitchell. I work for Greer Heights Community, Billings School. The marriage that you guys got with Billingsville and Cotswold. I want to talk to you about one of your commitments is equity. I read your disparity report. It's very disturbing that by the time African-American kids get to 12th grade, they're 4 grades behind. So we're going to be doing some dynamic things in the Greer Heights community with Billingsville and with Cotswold, with the parents, getting them more involved. So I want you to be at the table. So this is just an initial introduction to my work that I'm doing. My kids are already in their 30s, so CMS was great for them. But those 2 young people that I just saw, there's a lot of young people like that in the hood. I represent the hood. So you're going to see my face again. On the 11th of April, I'm meeting with Margaret at Julia's Coffee on Wendover. And we're going to talk about what we can do to get the parents more involved in their child's education, because I was extremely involved with my children's education. And every child needs to have the support, not only in money, but in emotional support, like that young man had with his family. So, like I say, this is just an initial introduction to me, because you'll see my face again. But I'm very concerned about the state of CMS right now. Every child deserves your support. Every community deserves your support. So I'm here to let you know that keep your eye on Greer Heights and Billingsville schools. We got a lot of support from the community. So we're going to be getting some parents involved in the situation. So it's coming. So just keep your eye on it. And I'm going to be working with Margaret. And I just met Ms. Sawyer tonight. So thank you for this opportunity to speak before you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Before I move to a request from the public, I'd like to recognize 3 of our other elected officials who we work very closely with. Ms. Elaine Powell, who represents District 1 and is the vice chair for our county commissioners. Thank you for being here. Ms. Susan Harden, who represents District 5. Thank you. And the next Susan, Ms. Susan Rodriguez McDowell, who represents District 6. Thank you all for being here. It's an appropriate time to hear the superintendent's budget. All right, now we move to requests from the public. And I do want to say that once you call in and you ask to speak as an individual, that's how we have you logged. And it's difficult to change that once you're here and you're deciding you want to now speak as a group. So you will be called as an individual because that's how you called in to speak. All right, our first speaker, and we have 2 mics, so I'm going to call 3 for each side if possible. Mr. Bobby Forrest, who is a student, Ms. Colette Forrest and Leah Cherry, Mark Ambrose, Tara Long, and Dolores Johnson-Hurt.
Hi, my name is Bobby Forrest. I'm a 6th grader at Piedmont IB Middle School. I am blessed with intelligence from God, a determined mommy, and my desire to win. I've been blessed to go to the best CMS school with some of the best teachers in North Carolina. I want to continue that trend and attend West Charlotte High School. As an IB student, I'm going to graduate with an IB diploma. I need a mastered IB certified teachers to help me obtain that diploma. As an IB student, I worked very hard to make the IB honor roll twice this year. As an IB student, I have value and worth as an IB student. I am going to West Charlotte as an IB student, and I and my fellow classmate need IB certified teachers to meet us there. Please help us and send IB certified teachers to West Charlotte High School. Thank you.
Thank you, Bobby. And please, forgive me, you do have 2 minutes to speak, and we'll reserve the right to cut off anyone who uses inappropriate language or makes a personal attack. So I'm sorry I didn't go through my whole spiel for requests from the public. Ms. Forrest?
Good evening. My name is Colette Forrest, and I'm the proud mother of Bobby Forrest. I thought that I couldn't be more prouder of him. But on Tuesday, March the 26th, he made a big difference in my life. He attends Piedmont IB. After school, bell rang 4:15. He then came home riding the CMS school bus. I then picked him up for 6 o'clock group Grind Academy basketball training. At 7 o'clock, I took him across town to Northfit CrossFit so he can begin that training. We left at 8 p.m. and then we went home, and he pushed through math. The next day, Wednesday, March the 27th, I went to work early. He fell back asleep. He missed the bus. My son, my 12-year-old son, in 2019, walked to school. Imagine where Bojangles on Trade Street is. We live behind the street. He walked up 4th Street. He walked, took a left on Brevard, 9 a.m. in the morning. He got on 7th Street, walked all the way down 7th Street, got to Little Rock Church, cut through Little Rock Church, walked through the houses, got on McDowell Street, crossed McDowell Street, walked down McDowell Street, got on 10th Street, walked to Piedmont IB. 2019, he walked to school because his education is that important to him. I asked my son, as scared as I would after I found out, "How did you know?" He said, "Mommy, I memorized the route because I paid attention to the bus driver." We must pay attention to our children. They are woefully prepared for excellence. That's what he's asking for to meet him at West Charlotte High School. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Forrest. Leah Cherry and Mark Ambrose. Leah's not here.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm actually here because I work for a company called Niznik Health, and they have created a helpline that we are offering for the students and the teachers. It is a free mental health and substance abuse hotline for all of the kids or families that may have any crisis or anything like that. They will help them find services in their area and help the children or families when they're having a difficult time. It is a 24-hour hotline, so even if they're in crisis at 3 in the morning, they're welcome to call. And I have some handouts for everybody that I'll leave at the front, but I just wanted to kind of stop in and be able to offer that service to everybody in Charlotte. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Tara Long, then Ms. Dolores Johnson-Hurt.
Good evening, everyone. For those of you who do not know me, I'm Tara Long. I'm on the Healthcare Justice NC Board and co-chair of the Healthcare Justice NC Legislative Committee. Our organization is a physician-based advocacy group promoting Medicare for all. You may be asking yourself, how Medicare for all impacts education? Well, as a former CMS parent and a CMS teacher, if students do not receive proper health care, they are unable to achieve in school. We also heard this from Amanda. Academic success is a priority. What is Medicare for All? It is a single-payer system that replaces insurance companies. Every U.S. citizen would have insurance, have Medicare for all, regardless of their ability to pay for it. Just like public education, the government would finance this health care. Health care would be a right, not a privilege. Medicare for All Act of 2019 is the current bill we support. By eliminating insurance companies, the cost of health care would be reduced by $500 billion, and every U.S. citizen would have access to it. It just makes moral and fiscal sense. So, we are inviting you to an event. Wendell Potter is coming here April 12th to speak. This is a big deal to us because he worked for an insurance company and will tell us the unethical practices insurance companies use to avoid treating patients. I can't wait to learn his secrets. He will be at Queens College, and we are inviting you all to attend. This event is free and open to the public. As a community organizer, it means so much to me when my elected officials attend our events. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. I am Dolores Johnson Hurt, and I'm president of the League of Women Voters Charlotte-Mecklenburg. The League recognizes that CMS has been diligently working on greater equity in the public schools, and we support you in these efforts. In light of the Policy Committee's work on equity and our support for your equity initiatives, we want to urge you to include a Community Equity Advisory Committee as an important element which is currently missing from your proposed equity policy. The rationale for such a committee includes the following. Number one, a community-based equity advisory committee, EAC, can help to build trust among CMS, the board, and the public. Number two, a committee of diverse stakeholders can provide valuable input and resources to assist CMS in addressing the complex community challenges that impact our students and schools. Number three, transparency and accountability can be achieved through regularly scheduled reports shared with the EAC that are prepared by CMS, which indicate progress towards its identified areas of action for equity in our schools. The League views the roles of the community-based EAC as follows: to promote mutual understanding and build trust between the community and CMS, to promote inclusion, justice, and equity in our schools, to support the goals and work of CMS in its efforts to achieve equity for all students, to contact the district or connect the district with community resources to increase student success and build partnerships to support these efforts. We hope you will build on the good work that you're doing to support greater equity in our schools and for our students, and that you will include the establishment of a community-based equity advisory committee in the equity policy that you are now considering. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speakers signed up as groups, and as groups, you will have 7 minutes. It will be, the first group is Gina Haywood, George Miles, and Angela Markey. The next group, which can come to this mic if possible, will be Janelle Clemens, Heather McAfee, and Carrie Roberts.
My name is Anjali Markey, and we are CMS volunteers. The three of us have been volunteer tutors at Sedgefield Elementary for multiple years. We have come tonight to share what we have seen firsthand at Marie G. Davis. We followed our children there and want to share what we have learned from statistics on the CMS website about the results of the redistricting that took effect this fall 2018.
You have this map in your box, and it shows the combined Dilworth-Latta School District that's newly created, and it shows the carved-out areas that were used to make the new school small enough. It was overpopulated. And this area represents what was carved out and has now been assigned to Marie G. Davis. That area, almost all the homes there are in Southside Homes. It's the largest and oldest income-based housing project in Charlotte. It has 381 low-income homes as defined by the Charlotte Housing Authority. On the other side of the paper is a set of tables I was hoping to explain to you, but I'm going to skip over the first one and go to the second one, which is a 2-year comparison of socioeconomic data between the combined Dilworth, Sedgefield, and Marie G. Davis. It shows that the low socioeconomic status children at Dilworth last year was 17%, and at Sedgefield was 78%. Now the combined school has a ratio of 24% of low socioeconomic students, and that's great. Unfortunately, what happened to Marie G. Davis in that change was that its low socioeconomic population went from 70% up to 79%, higher than Sedgefield was in the beginning. The final table shows a list of the school support personnel at each of these two schools, and it shows the ratio of students to each support person. And if you look down those numbers, you'll see that in almost every case, the people at Marie G. Davis are servicing a much larger number of students than those at the combined Dilworth-Sedgefield. The board's draft equity policy says reduce the number of schools with high concentrations of poor and high-need students. That's hard to do when when Southside Homes is across the street from you. Your equity policy also states students experiencing multiple traumas need support from social workers, counselors, and psychologists to ensure success. The total enrollment and high concentration of high-poverty students both grew a lot this year at Marie G. Davis. You need to consult with those support personnel and the staff as a whole and come up with an adequate number of support to help the high-poverty population that is there now.
I want to share some personal experiences now. Several of the kids I worked with at Sedgefield in the past could be difficult and disruptive at times. And unfortunately, they sometimes still are at Marie G. Davis. But there's a big difference in the way I observe difficult situations being handled. Early this year, on one of my first days at Marie G. Davis, as I was going down the hall to get one of my kids, I came across a disturbance between a couple of kids. There was an aide trying to deal with the situation, and she was on her walkie-talkie. I wondered why there were not several adults converging on the disturbances I had observed in Sedgefield in past years. But I came to realize that no one else was coming because there was no one else to come. I have worked with one of my young friends at Marie G. Davis for 4 years now. Z is smart, and most of the time he's sweet. But he has experienced a great deal of trauma in his young life, and there are times he is unable to control his anger, and he acts out in ways that are disruptive. At those times, Z needs to be separated from his classroom and the other kids, and he needs someone to work with him long-term to help him develop coping skills. But there are not enough support staff at Marie G. Davis to deal with the immediate issues of discipline and bad behavior. And there are also not enough support staff to deal with the non-immediate situations where a kid needs additional help that will enable him to learn and will prevent him from keeping his classmates from learning. Marie G. Davis simply does not have enough staff to handle all of the high-risk, high-need kids like Z who are now at the school. I am not disparaging the teachers and administrative staff at Marie G. Davis. They are my heroes. I see what they do every day. I was there today. The problem is not with their dedication, commitment, or ability. The main problems, there simply are not enough of them. We as a community, as a school system, are failing the kids at Marie G. Davis. We changed a school that was doing a pretty good job of meeting the needs of the kids there by adding over 100 high-poverty kids with the issues and needs they have through no fault of their own, without increasing the staffing to meet those needs. The kids at Marie G. Davis do not have all the support they need to thrive. And again, it is not the fault of the current staff and teachers. There's just not enough of them with the right skills to meet the needs of the new demographic at Marie G. Davis. This has been a rough year for some kids and their teachers. Please, let's make next year a better one for Marie G. Davis by increasing that support staff.
Thank you. Our next group.
Before we start, we had given the clerk packets to hand out to all of you, just so you could kind of follow along. I'm not sure if that was going to be...
She'll get those to us.
Great, thank you. Good evening. My name is Carrie Roberts, and I'm joined by Heather McAfee and Janelle Clemens. And on behalf of the Community House Middle School leadership team, we thank you for allowing us to speak this evening. We are here to address our school's overcrowding and its effects, the data that supports it, what the future holds for the area around Community House, and propose short and long-term solutions. As an SLT, we have worked very hard over the last year to educate ourselves on what the students and staff are experiencing, given the number of students at our school. And we have found upon further investigation the data that supports our presentation. We have met with Mecklenburg Planning. We have listened to Charlotte Planning Directors, his comprehensive plan. We have met with several of the school board members, our county commissioner, and recently in January, we even held a meeting with Dr. Wilcox, area principals, the SLT and PTO representatives for all the feeder schools in and out of Community House. This list is a small representation of who we have talked to seek to understand our situation and how we can best help make a positive solution. We have done our homework, and now we need your help. I'm going to focus on the intrinsic effects that overcrowding has had on the students and staff at Community House. We are experiencing increases in social, emotional, and mental health. Specifically, with nurse visits, every 9 to 14 minutes, we have a child that comes to our nurse station. That equates to 30 to 45 visits per day. Middle school is a time of change and wanting to be accepted. Many students have voiced concern about not having a feeling of connectedness or belonging, or the loss of identity due to the fact that they are unable to participate in their school sport teams due to the limited spots available. Most teams only have 15 spots for the 100 students that are trying out. A vast majority of students will never experience being on their school athletic team. Space and the lack of in our hallways during class changes, in the cafeteria for lunch, the lack of room for class or school-wide assemblies, and even our bus lot. We are maxed out. This lack of space leads us to a very important issue of fire code. We are gravely concerned about the case of an emergency and the effects that this would have on our community. The general well-being of our staff is of utmost importance, and our teachers work harder and compensate for the number of students and the lack of space. Many elective teachers work without their own classroom and travel by cart to navigate the crowded halls. A portion of our teachers do not have office space, as we only have room for 20 teachers and need to accommodate 30. At this time, Heather McAfee will dive more into the numbers, which reiterate the data I've shared.
Thanks, Carrie. As I said, I'd like to share the data that supports the effects of overcrowding and utilizing the CMS school utilization data. We'll look at, for time's sake, just for the students, the effects on the students. The community house was built with 1,200 students, and we currently have over 1,900. This results in a utilization rate of 164%, which makes community house the most overcrowded middle school in our school district. We also, it also ranks first in terms of classrooms. We are 155% utilization in terms of faculty and staff. Community house is 153% utilization when it comes to facility utilization for our cafeteria. Each student is supposed to get 12 square feet of space, and our students are currently getting 7.8 square feet. So our issues at Community House are grave, and in your presentation that we gave you, you can see the data. The issues aren't really just related to Community House. Our feeder elementary and high schools have high levels of capacity as well. Audrey Kell is 173% utilization rate, which is the most overcrowded school in the school district. And our elementary schools that feed in have some of the same issues. So you can see that the data supports exactly what our students are feeling, that we at Community House are having significant problems. And some of our children are not only feeling the overcrowding now, but they have felt the overcrowding from kindergarten through 12th grade based on our feeder system. So we have a problem now, but we also have the future is not so bright for growth. Well, we have a lot of growth coming in South Charlotte. And in the next 20 years, the Charlotte Planning Director has said that we will have over 2,000 new housing units that will come up in South Charlotte. So not only do we have a current issue, but we also have a future issue. And Janelle, who is from our SLT, is going to talk about short and long-term solutions.
Thank you, Heather. So in order to address overcrowding, there are really two main levers that you can accomplish this by. The first is to increase staff and facilities, and the second is to decrease the student population. So we have short and long-term solutions that are included on page 4 of your presentation. Based on time, I am just going to highlight 1 to 2 of those. So our short-term solution recommendations are really looking at a 12-month or less horizon. Some of those solutions include to implement a residency affidavit during the transition years for 6th and 9th grade. For the top 5 most overcrowded middle and high schools, we at Community House are in a unique attendance zone where we are 3 miles from the South Carolina border and very much believe that we have students from South Carolina and also not in our attendance zone attending our school. A second solution is to increase the number of mobile units or to construct a modular building. And another short-term solution is to have the Ray Farms School take many seats from J.M. Robinson and move those students from Community House to J.M. From a long-term solution perspective, what I want to leave you all with today is that we are in desperate need of another middle school for our area. We need to not only address the overcrowding today, but also to deal with the projected growth. And we are willing to work together with you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The next group of speakers will be Lee Suggs, Brooke Koppel, Maggie Webb, Tim Hodge, Lisa Para, and Kara Dale.
Good evening. My name is Lee Sugg. I'm in my 10th year as a CMS parent, currently having children at Providence Spring Elementary, J.M. Robinson Middle, and Providence High. I have spent 8 years serving on PTA boards, including serving as president for Providence Spring during last year's debate surrounding House Bill 13. I tell you this in the hope you'll appreciate I speak from experience with a genuine dedication and affection for our public schools. The 2013 bond that resulted in the building of Ray Farms described the school as, and I quote, new STEAM K-8 magnet in South Charlotte. It goes on to say it would also provide much needed relief for Community House and J.M. Robinson middle schools, as well as the elementary schools which feed them. This language is what we as voters were told by CMS would be the result of our affirmative vote. So that is what we would like to see, a true 100% magnet with priority admission given to students who are currently enrolled in those overcrowded schools that were mentioned in the initial bond proposal. I would like to see parents in the community house and J.M. Robinson attendance zones given a choice to opt in to the Ray Farm School, but I do not want to see mandatory assignment of families that are very happy and invested in their current home school. The CMS website for magnet schools has the tagline, "Match your dreams to your school." And if a STEAM school is your child's dream, then Ray Farms will be an excellent choice. But what about the child who doesn't dream of attending a STEAM school, or a school that is a K through 8? Or what about the child who wants a true middle school experience between elementary and high school? What about kids like my son, who is most excited about middle school because he dreams of playing football for his school? Ray Farms is not their dream, and no different than parents being given the right to opt into a magnet, they should be given the right to opt out of one that is not appropriate for their child. For Ray Farms to be a successful K-8 STEAM school, you need a student body and a parent community that wants to be there. That, as CMS puts it, dreams of being there. If mandatory assignment is deemed necessary to fill the school, it should be based in the newly built neighborhoods where families buying a home understand their home school will be Ray Farms. Those families' conscious choice to be there and live there.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Brooke Keppel, and I have 3 children that attend Polo Ridge Elementary, and my oldest will go to J.M. Robinson next year. I am a room parent, vice president of communication for the PTA, and a CMS employee as a substitute at Polo Ridge. We have lived in our home since 2009, and I voted for the 2013 bond. When I voted yes for that bond, what I was not voting for was a mandatory K-8 STEAM magnet that our neighborhood would be rezoned to attend as our home school. What I was not voting for was a forced, non-traditional grade configuration that has had arguably mixed results and a curriculum that may not be the best option for my children. I think we can all agree that what this community looked like and may have needed in 2013 is very different from what we need today. Based on Ray Farms' location and desired contiguous boundaries, the Ray Farms School will pull mostly from Polo Ridge Elementary and J.M. Robinson Middle School. If the goal is to relieve overcrowding, there are several schools that are in more challenging situations than Polo Ridge and J.M. Robinson. In District 6, everyone is aware that our elementary schools are more than at capacity. In order, Providence Springs is at approximately 139% utilization, Elon Park 137%, Hawk Ridge 132%, and Polo Ridge in 4th at 128%. For our local middle schools, Community House is at an astounding 155%. South Charlotte 120%, and J.M. Robinson 119%. So clearly there are schools that could much better benefit from rezoning if the primary goal is overcrowding relief. If there is land and a budget for a new school, while I know it is on the table for 2023, why aren't we putting current focus on doing something about Argykill High School that is at a mind-blowing 166% capacity? We are here because we are looking for our board to give overcrowding relief where it makes the most sense. We are in need of verifying home addresses as an easy fix to ensure homeschool populations are as zoned. And I do expect my children to receive a traditional middle school experience that will best position them for a successful transition to high school.
Thank you. Maggie?
Yes, thank you for the opportunity to address the board in regards to the new Ray Farms School. My name is Maggie Webb, and I am the parent of a kindergartner and a 2nd grader at Polo Ridge Elementary. I am speaking to ask the board to do what District 6 wants and needs. Make Ray Farms a traditional middle school, as other parents will speak to, or make it a full magnet school. I voted yes on the 2013 community bond as it was presented to the voters, a full magnet K-8 STEAM school, which was what the community wanted and needed 6 years ago. At the community outreach meeting on March 21st, we were told that Ray Farms was going to be partial magnet, partial homeschool. I appreciate that CMS has the Your Child, Your School, Your Choice option in addition to our neighborhood school to match our children's interests and talents. What I do not appreciate is a school that should be 100% choice being potentially forced on our children. K-8 should be a choice. Carol Sawyer, 2 years ago, wrote an article, an op-ed in the Charlotte Observer, and in this op-ed she stated, "I urge the board to dismantle the district's non-magnet K-8 schools and eliminate non-magnet K-8 schools from future planning." I wholeheartedly agree with this statement. There are very few examples in CMS of a partial magnet K-8 school being imposed and being effective. In fact, there are cases like Bruns Academy, where K-8 partial magnet was reversed back to a traditional school. I am asking you to keep this ineffective model off the table, and if Ray Farms is in middle school, make it a full magnet school. Your child, your school, your choice. Please don't take away our choice. Do what this community needs. Thank you.
Thank you. Tim?
Good evening, I'm Tim Hoke. I have 4 children who do or will attend CMS Public Schools. My wife is a school teacher. My mom's a retired school teacher. I'm a product of public schools. I love CMS schools. In 2013, voters passed the bond to fund a school that was marketed by CMS as a, quote, new K-8 magnet. Of interest, the school was marketed as a magnet, not a partial magnet, partial homeschool. Even today, your website presents information about magnet and theme schools under the title, quote, your choices. So on March 21st, when Ms. Craven-Howell asked us to draw boundaries around our neighborhoods that would soon be homeschooled into this non-traditional choice configuration, we were shocked and confused. This is a problem, but it's not our biggest problem. Providence Spring, 139%. Polo Ridge, 128. Elon Park, 137. Hawk Ridge, 132. Community House, 164% utilization. I can continue, but you know the District 6 numbers. Even if the local community wanted and needed a K-8 magnet in 2012, that is not what the community wants or needs today. We need relief for our overcrowded schools. So a K-8 STEAM magnet at Ray Farms does not solve the most pressing and acute problem. Now, I'm pleased with CMS that we have a new elementary school and a high school coming in 23, but we all know that if they open today, they would be at or near capacity. What this community needs is a middle school. Now, Ms. Craven-Howell also shared that you're mindful to stay close to the bond language in order to retain the trust and confidence of the public. 2 things. 1, selling the school as a K-8 STEAM magnet choice, then homeschooling local neighborhoods into this non-traditional configuration breaks that trust. 2, this board is elected to make decisions and hard choices based on the needs of the community today. Please, please, don't ignore the problems that exist today. If you force our kids into a non-traditional configuration, then I guarantee you will lose the trust and confidence of the public. Before you make a vote, please come see our overcrowded schools and drive our community. I'm sure you'll make the right choice for our kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa, before you speak, let me call Mary Light, Tara Lagnama. Forgive me, Tara. And Melissa Easley. Okay, Lisa.
Thank you. My name is Lisa Para. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank you for listening to us today. I am the mother of a 3rd grade student at Polo Ridge Elementary. I have lived in South Charlotte for 20 years and have voted for every school bond offered since then. Over the years, I've witnessed an incredible amount of development and population growth in Charlotte, particularly in the Valentine area. CMS has worked hard to keep up with this tremendous growth, but unfortunately, we have some of the most overcrowded schools in our district. The 2017 bond thankfully addresses the need for a new elementary and high school in our area. But unfortunately, we have yet to hear of substantial plans to address the desperately overcrowded middle schools. I do not feel the Ray Farms K-8 school will even begin to relieve the overcrowding at one of these middle schools, much less 3 in the immediate area. In the 2013 bond, Ray Farms was offered to the voters as a magnet school, not a neighborhood or a partial magnet. Magnet to me implies choice, not mandatory zoning. My husband was a very proud graduate of 1988 West Charlotte High. He attended Irwin Elementary, Piedmont Middle, and West Charlotte through the Open program, an educational opportunity his parents chose for him. Although the Open program was at the time a very progressive educational model, It was housed within a traditional school setting. He had a better education than anyone I know. Please do not take away our choice of a traditional public education for our child. District 4 Representative Carol Sawyer's March 9th, 2017 op-ed in the Charlotte Observer makes a strong recommendation to discontinue the K-8 model. Many of your points mention the lack of educational opportunities for middle school students that are offered at traditional schools. I guess I'll end there.
Thank you.
Please don't take away our choice.
Kara.
Thank you for providing us this opportunity for discussion. My name is Kara Dale. I've been in Charlotte for 17 years. I have 2 boys that have been a member of the CMS family for the last 8 years. I myself am a product of public education, going all the way through to my graduate degree in public administration. I'm a board member of our PTA and have been so for as long as I can remember, so I'm really invested in this issue. As you can already tell, this is a pretty big hot topic in our community. Ray Farms has gone from what was once a relief school to now a K-8 STEAM that's providing very little relief. It is, however, providing a great deal of anxiety and concern for our area. The 2 most overcrowded schools in our area, Ardrey Kell and Community House, would receive no relief, and it can be stated that that's because of the language of the bond. However, I think there are many things in our school system that are going against the language of what they were intended. Ray Farms was told that can't help with this overcrowding situation because of contiguous boundaries. But I'm wondering why these boundaries are being focused on so heavily now when they're not even being upheld in the 2 aforementioned schools. If you go on the CMS website, you see a lot of information on student assignment, including a 37-page plan and a student dot map. What you won't find is any kind of recourse that we have when there's a lack of enforcement of this. You won't find any footnotes on any of these 37 pages that will state that these are only theoretical. You can rent a room at somebody's house and go to whatever school you would like. And you also won't see the plethora of dots on these attendance dot maps that show all the students from South Carolina and other boundaries that are being pulled in. Supposedly, the imaginary dots for Community House would be around 300. Ardrey Kell has been estimated between 500 and 700 that do not belong in that area. I'm here tonight asking for 3 things. Please implement broad policy enforcement of these residency plans for these schools. Number 2, please consider adding more new schools to the upcoming construction calendar. The land purchased across from Ardrey Kell High School recently can accommodate a lot more than just an elementary school. We could put a middle school on there as well. If you would help me with talking to county commissioners who are responsible for building these schools to provide funding for a new middle school, that would be great. Their unallocated general fund is huge, and we all know that.
Thank you, Kara. Mary?
Yes. Good evening. Thank you for your time and allowing us, members and voters of the community, to speak to you tonight. My name is Mary Light. I'm the mother of 3 children in the CMS system. We recently transplanted here from DC roughly 3 years ago, and I've been immensely impressed with the CMS public school system. The 2013 bond, however, is a little bit of a different story for us. I appreciate the need and the desire for a K-8 STEAM program. Who wouldn't want more school offerings for their child? For some, they are an excellent choice for growth, development, and opportunity. For others, K-8 magnet and STEAM programs, impartial magnets, simply don't work. In fact, data shows that when communities and students were forced into these programs, their success rates plummeted in comparison with your traditional school systems that are thriving. Historically speaking, the majority of K-8s in the district have also missed their growth objectives year over year, and very few can claim to be thriving as a traditional neighborhood school or partial magnet K-8. Enrolling in K-8 magnets or STEAM programs, as my colleagues and predecessors of speaking have said, is a choice. It's always been a choice that parents consciously make for their child. Children that they know will thrive under that type of curriculum, not because they reside in a certain boundary. What this community needed in 2013 is very different from what we need today. I wasn't here to vote on that bond, but in the last 3 years, I've seen exponential growth in South Charlotte. I'm not confident that the voters were aware of the development plans that are being built today. I'm not confident that the infrastructure plans match those growth plans. But I am confident that the voters of 2013 are not a reflection of today's voters. The population has shifted in diversity, in age, and educational need. I would encourage you to hear what we, the 2019 community, are saying here tonight. As you've heard others say, we're overutilization in all of our schools. I would encourage you to think long, as parents, we think long and hard about the decisions we make for our child and where they would go, their upbringing, their education. We cannot afford to have that choice be taken away.
your motto of your choice, your school, and your child are in line with what we want, a choice for our child and the school that they attend. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah?
Hi, my name is Melissa Easley, and I am a teacher at McClintock Middle School. First, I would like to thank you for the budget requests that were made in the budget proposal that was released last month. I am also here to request for your support for May 1st. I encourage you to join us as you consider an optional teacher workday so that we can travel to Raleigh and fight for the schools that we deserve. May 1st is a call to action by NCAE and other educational professionals across the state to march for increased wages for educators, including bus drivers, nutrition specialists, custodial staff, and other educational support personnel, the reinstatement of master's pay, the retirement benefits, and the expanding and access the amount of healthcare professionals and resources. In the most recent CMS budget proposal, CMS has chosen to invest in their people by increasing the local supplements, raise the pay for non-certified staff, and increasing the number of student support personnel and services. These proposals mirror the same demands that we asked from the state, and CMS has shown us that investing in our education is important to our community, and it's time that we hold the state to the same expectations. Having your support on May 1st gives us all educators the power, support, and encouragement that we need to do for our education for our family of educators. While we know the CMS budget invests in educators, we cannot stand by and watch that other districts suffer around us as they struggle to pay for basic school supplies and clean water. Let's prove to the state that Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools has leaders that care about not only our students, but the students around the state. I know you will make the fair and right decision that not only supports your voice, but the voice of your community of educators. In turn, that will allow us to organize food, childcare, and will show our solidarity in our right, our community, our children, and our voice. Thank you for your time.
Tara?
Good evening. Thank you for allowing us the opportunity to speak on behalf of our children, friends, and neighbors in regards to the Ray Farm STEAM School. I have lived and voted in District 6 for close to 2 decades now. When we purchased our current home, 1.5 miles from our last home off Tom Short, we did so not to lower our taxes or to buy a larger yet lower priced home. We did it because of our community and the excellent schools for our 3 young children. Any changes that are made to the CMS school district will affect my family for the next 15 years. I believe all parents should be actively involved in their children's education, which is why I'm a member of the Polo Ridge PTA, as well as an active volunteer in the classrooms. A K-8 magnet, especially one with forced home boundaries, is not what our community wants. A K-8 magnet would provide little relief to this area, as it would pull from the greater Charlotte area, in addition to forcing students who live closest into a curriculum which may not be best suited for their educational needs. Magnets are part of the school choice program and should stay as such for those who believe their children would excel in that type of educational environment. The bond marketing material published by CMS sold Ray Farms as a K-8 magnet, not a partial magnet, partial homeschool. Carol Sawyer, who has been popular tonight, sorry Carol, has mentioned that students assigned to K-8 schools do not have access to the same educational opportunities as their counterparts at the district's traditional middle schools. It seems to make the most sense to make this school a full traditional middle school or STEAM school with extracurricular activities as a middle school and electives that other middle schools would offer. The 2013 bond is outdated, and CMS needs to plan ahead and not just build schools that will house the current population, but our future population as well. I believe there is also a potential for both an elementary school and middle school to be built on the 37 acres of land that was purchased across from Ardrey Kell. This would help alleviate overcrowding at the elementary schools in the area in the very near future and would allow growth for the middle schools. Thank you so much. Again, we just don't want to be forced into a STEAM school. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. This ends our request from the public. We are now moving to our consent items. Is there a motion that the board approve the consent items?
So moved.
Second. I'm sorry, what's your question?
I thought we voted on the consent items when we first opened the meeting.
No.
Moved and seconded.
That's why they're still all up there waiting for us to vote on.
Okay.
All right, I thought I heard a motion.
Motion to approve consent.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, before we move to a vote, does any board member wish to pull any part of this list for individual consideration? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Okay, before the superintendent starts, though, with the part that he's going to do, I would like to lift up item D, recommend approval for capital program management services. And is Shakitha here? Okay, could we get you to just come and just recognize a few special guests that we may have in the audience for us, please? And just give us a brief background on what that is in case someone has forgotten. Very brief.
Very brief, okay. Good afternoon. Back in the winter, we did an RFQ to look at our capital program management contract, and we did put it out for bid, and we advertised publicly as well as across this country for that. And after our review process, we did make a selection as regards to LaChase Jacobs. Here with me tonight is part of our team who actually was a part of the selection committee, so I'd like to introduce you to Dennis Roy.
Dennis Dreyer.
And from our committee, it was a very diverse group. It included our procurement services, our bond oversight committee chair, as well as our architect. And we picked the firm of LaChase Jacobs primarily because of the enhanced opportunities we will have with the partner with Jacobs being added to the team. Tonight, we have with us members from LaChase and Jacobs. I'd like to acknowledge Bill Goodrich and Ms. Lopez from Jacobs. The Jacobs team brings to us enhanced in-house capabilities as it relates to our design services, and also it relates to how our long-term planning, as well as in our workforce development initiatives that we have going forward, and that lot of 21st century experience nationally that will help us as we go along and do our long-range planning for our schools.
Thank you very much. I said I was going to keep you short. All right. Mr. Superintendent, your personnel appointments.
Thank you. It gives me great pleasure to recognize some team members who have new positions in the system. First, I want to begin with the new principal at Long Creek Elementary School, Shannon Hamilton. Shannon, will you stand and be recognized by the audience? Thank you. Shannon has been the interim principal at Long Creek. She has been an equity specialist in the Office of Accountability. She's been an executive coordinator in the Office of School Performance. She's also spent time as a curriculum coordinator in the North Learning Community. She has been a principal intern at Blythe Elementary School. And perhaps most importantly, she has spent a lot of time as a facilitator where she's worked in math, both at Moorhead STEM, and she has been a teacher at Moorhead STEM, so she has a great understanding of curriculum and instruction. She received her bachelor's degree in elementary education and special education from Providence College in Providence, Rhode Island, and she earned a master's degree in educational leadership from Winthrop University. Please join me again in welcoming and thanking Shannon for accepting this position. And Shannon, would you then introduce any special guests that you have with you tonight?
Sure. Good evening, Superintendent Wilcox and Board. Thank you for this opportunity. I have been the interim principal, and so I know my staff is tuning in tonight to learn their fate, and it's me. So I'll see you tomorrow. I love you guys. Go Mustangs. Also, I know my mom and dad are live streaming in New York. Mom and Dad, love you. Here with me tonight, I have my amazing husband, Josh, my boss and mentor, the Learning Community Superintendent of the Northwest Learning Community, Dr. Matt Hayes, and a friend and mentor, Dr. Dawn Robinson, amongst many other faces here that have helped try to keep me out of trouble for many years. So thank you for this opportunity. I'm very excited and privileged. Thank you.
Thank you, and congratulations. Also moving to a new position within the system is a team member that brings a smile to everyone's face. That's the Executive Director of Learning and Language Development, Nadja Trace. Nadja, will you please stand and be recognized? Thank you. Congratulations, Nadja. Nadja moves over from her position as an Executive Director of English Learner Services. She has also been an ESL teacher at Newell Elementary School. She's been the Executive Manager of the Russian Chamber of Commerce and the Korean Bureau Office. She has a bachelor's degree in Russian language and literature from the Korea University in Seoul, South Korea. She has a master's degree in education and leadership from Wingate University in Wingate, North Carolina. Again, congratulations, Nadja. And do you have somebody that you would like to introduce? We can clap now, though. I'm sorry. I cut her off.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be joined by my work family, Hector Ramirez, Amanda Acott, Jamara Johnson, Lindsay Fall, Melanie Bauer, Anoy Famabanse, and Bill King. And I also like to thank my current boss, Kathy Elling, for your leadership, and also our awesome Chief Academic Officer, Brian Kingsley, also awesome Chief of Staff, Laura Francisco. Thank you for your guidance.
Thank you. And another leader in the district who's taken a new position, Kelly Price. Kelly, would you stand and be recognized? Congratulations, Kelly. Kelly is the Executive Director now of Federal Programs. He moves over from the position of Executive Director for Title I Service. Kelly has been a Spanish teacher in Kannapolis City Public Schools and in the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools. He has been the Teacher of the Year at Villa Heights Elementary and the Teacher of the Year at Charles Aycock Elementary in Kannapolis, North Carolina. Congratulations, Kelly. And Kelly, we're going to clap for you, and then please introduce anybody you have with you.
Thank you, Dr. Wilcox. My other half is at Clemson University getting his PhD, so he cannot be here tonight, but my parents are tuning in. He will be tuning in later. I have asked my good friend and colleague, Colette Williams from CTE, who I've known for more than 20 years, to be the stand-in. And also would like to thank my current boss and supervisor and mentor, Brian Kingsley, for his support in my transition to this role. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And then I'd like to introduce you Jocelyn Wilson. Jocelyn is the new Director of Logistics and Development. Jocelyn, would you stand, please, and be recognized? There you are, way up top. Jocelyn has spent time with us in the Title I department. She has her master's degree in organizational development, and she has an executive coaching certification. Jocelyn, welcome. And who would you like to introduce to us this evening?
This is my little one, thanks. One, I have my son Luke, who's 5, and my amazing husband Daryl, and also joined by my fabulous mentor Kelly Price and my amazing new manager, Brian Kingsley.
Hey, all right. Thank you. And that concludes my introductions this evening.
Well, thank you. Thank you. All right. We have no action items tonight, so we'll be moving right on into reports and information items. The first is a report on budget amendments for February 2019. I turn to the superintendent.
As presented.
Next, B and C is report on financial statements for February 2019 and report on capital project ordinances for February 2019. Turn to the superintendent for his line.
As presented.
D is student assignment. I turn to the superintendent for this report.
I can't give it, everybody's leaving. As presented. I'm just teasing. Just want to see if I can make one of you look. As presented.
No, student assignment.
Oh.
You gotta call somebody.
Oh. As presented.
Can't we just as presented too?
Akeisha Craven-Howell is going to come forward and make this presentation. Thank you.
I am so sorry. It is not in my script, sir. Ms. Craven-Howell, can I ask you to please be seated? Yep. The chair made an error, and I'll own it. Now, General Counsel made an error, and I'll own his. The next is the first reading for policy ADA equity, and I turn to our policy chair, Dr. Ruby Jones.
I thought it was going to be as presented. It can be.
If you hand it off to Dr. Wilcox, it can be.
Okay, Policy Code ADA Equity. Members of the board, the item before us tonight is the first reading of the proposed revisions of Policy ADA Equity. As this is a first reading tonight, there can be no discussion on this recommended change at this time. As we all know, the revisions of our equity policy have taken a great deal of time and discussion over the past year. The policy committee began working on the changes before us tonight at our meeting in August of 2018. Over the 8-month process, the policy committee held 11 meetings dedicated solely to this proposed policy change. We completed this exhaustive review and rewrite at our March 25th meeting. This proposed change in our equity policy defines the board's purpose and commitment to addressing equity challenges throughout our school district. It then defines the 6 areas of actions our district will use to monitor and to measure our progress, and mandates that the superintendent provide annual reports for each area of action. This change was considered by the CMS Policy Committee on March 25th and was recommended for approval by a 4-0 vote. Therefore, Madam Chair, as a reminder, this is the first reading only tonight, so there can be no discussion on this recommended change at this time. We will hold our first public hearing on this change at our April 23rd board meeting.
Thank you, Madam Chair of the Policy Committee. And now, Mr. Superintendent, we'll move to that report on student assignment.
Thank you. Keisha Craven Howell will deliver this report.
As presented. That's the new buzzword, as presented.
Good evening, Dr. Wilcox and board members. I'm going to present to you this evening student assignment decisions that will come before the board. Both are for fall 2020 openings. The scope is relatively small. There is one that is required and then one is that is discretionary, and I'll walk you through both of these. The first that is required is the Ray Farms Relief School. It is the final project of the 2013 bond. It is described as both a K-8 STEAM magnet as well as a relief school for Community House, J.M. Robinson, and the elementary schools that feed it. The facility will have 54 classrooms, and based on a design baseline of an average of 20 students per classroom, we're looking at a capacity of just under 1,100 students. It will have a full gymnasium and soccer field. Before you is the community engagement timeline. In March and just this week, we've had conversations with both J.M. Robinson and the elementary schools and its feeder patterns, as well as Community House and the elementary schools and its feeder patterns. And really those 2 meetings were focused on helping the community understand the opportunities inherent in opening Ray Farms, and also to get their input on the best use of that facility. We asked them kind of what were the top 3 things that they wanted CMS to be sure that we considered in developing the attendance boundary, as well as what were their greatest hopes for the school, as well as any concerns that they had. After tonight's board meeting, we will take that input, as well as your input this evening, and develop several scenarios for the Ray Farms Relief School attendance boundary. We will share those again with the community on April 22nd, and that will be a meeting where J.M. Robinson, Community House, and all of their elementary feeders, we will be invited to one meeting to review those scenarios, let us know what's positive about them, what trade-offs they see in each one. We will bring the information back to the board, along with the community input, narrowing towards sharing our best thinking in the form of a recommendation during the May board meeting for the board's vote. The next two slides just share again utilization data from J.M. Robinson and its elementary feeders, as well as Community House and its elementary school feeders. This is the same data for utilization that was shared back in the fall in response to the Municipal Concerns Act and the report that was presented as a result of that. So I won't walk through the data table, but just know that this data is consistent with that. Sorry, the clicker is not, there we go. So what you see here is a map, and let me orient you to this map a little bit. So the red lines represent elementary school attendance boundaries. The colored shading represents middle school attendance areas. And so you see kind of that tan area there, that is the J.M. Robinson Middle School attendance area. To the left of that in blue is the Community House attendance area. The blue squares on the map represent locations of middle schools. The green circles on the map represent locations of elementary schools, and the red schoolhouses represent locations of high schools. The fuchsia colored polygon inside the dark blue circle is the location of the Ray Farms Relief Site. It sits in the Polo Ridge Elementary attendance area as well as in the J.M. Robinson attendance area. Another view of the map zooms out a little bit and shows the high school boundaries. And so now you see the dark blue lines that represent the high school attendance areas. And so the Ray Farms site sits within the Ardrey-Kell High School attendance area. As I shared in the first two community engagement meetings, we asked the community to provide their feedback on what they most wanted CMS to be mindful of in creating the homeschool attendance boundaries for the Ray Farms School. We also gave them the opportunity to use the very same maps that I just walked you through and to draw for us where they thought the boundary lines that made the most sense should be. Overall, during those meetings, there was acknowledgement of the need to provide relief, particularly for Community House and its elementary feeders. Related to the attendance boundary, we got some feedback about avoiding reassigning existing neighborhoods and instead focusing on the growth in the South Charlotte area. And we do know that there's particular growth in the Ray Farms and Waverly areas. There was a preference for not creating an attendance boundary that would require students to cross 485, as well as a preference for keeping neighborhoods and HOAs together, which is also stated in the board's policy JCA. Relative to feeder patterns, we got feedback about keeping elementary feeders intact and a preference for changing elementary boundaries rather than splitting an elementary school's feed to multiple middle schools. There was also a preference for current high school continuations to remain the same. There was feedback from both sessions that CMS be mindful of home to school distance and not increasing significantly travel times or travel distance as a result of a new boundary for this school. Related to the magnet theme, there was certainly feedback that the STEAM theme does not resonate with everyone in the community. There were also questions regarding what would high school continuation be? How would high school, as they move on from the K-8, how would students exposed to STEAM be able to continue that in high school? There were also several comments that questioned the wisdom of having magnet seats given the significant need for relief among the surrounding schools. Related to the middle school experience, there was feedback regarding wanting a comparable range and quality of middle school electives that would be available in the K-8 as what's currently available in the comprehensive middle schools at J.M. Robinson and Community House. And then concerns regarding limited school-based sports. Certainly there would be opportunities for pairing with other schools for some sports and then some sports at the Ray Farm site itself. But there was some concern about limited school-based sports. And finally, related to the school structure and grade configuration, there were some suggestions to remove the magnet component and make the school a K-8 homeschool only. There was also feedback around removing the homeschool portion and making the school a full magnet school, which would serve the blue zone. There was feedback about making the school a middle school with no magnet component, and there's one bullet that looks like it's gotten chopped off there on the screen. But there was a wide range of feedback regarding multiple pairing scenarios for the school. So whereby you might make an overcrowded elementary school in close proximity a K2, and then Ray Farm would become a 3-5. There were also suggestions about the school becoming a 4-6 school, so it could pull grades 4 and 5 from overcrowded elementary schools and pull grade 6 students from Community House or J.M. Robinson. So a wide range of feedback around different pairing scenarios with the Ray Farm School. Again, our next steps are to take all of that feedback. What I've shared with you is just a summary and some trends, but we have very specific feedback from both these community engagement sessions. So our next steps are to take that feedback along with your feedback and input and create several boundary scenarios that we can bring back to you and the community for your input. The second item in scope is the Lincoln Heights facility, and this one is discretionary in terms of making a decision for fall 2020 or beyond. This is related to the 2017 bond. As a part of the 2017 bond, the current school in the Lincoln Heights facility will get a new school, and they will move into that building in the fall of 2019. After a year of kind of upfit and renovation, we would be able to move back into what will then be the old Lincoln Heights facility in the fall of 2020. It is a 39 classroom, 2-story facility. And again, based on a baseline of about 20 students per classroom, we're looking at a capacity of just under 800. This map shows the location of the Lincoln Heights facility is represented by the green dot on the map. It sits within the Bruns Elementary attendance area, and it is surrounded by the University Park, Creative Arts attendance area, Druid Hills, and Walter G. Byers. All of the schools that surround Lincoln Heights received some sort of relief and/or we implemented a magnet program in the schools to increase enrollment. Given that, we don't really need relief for the surrounding schools. And so the recommendation would be to consider a program of choice in the Lincoln Heights facility rather than a school with an attendance boundary. So our next steps there are to develop proposals for school choice programs, which could go into the Lincoln Heights facility, given its location and size, and engage both the community and the board to vet those proposals. So if you have any questions, I am happy to take those now.
Board members? Ms. Cheek?
Thank you. We heard a lot from the Community House and Ray Farms area this evening. They're still here, which I'm thankful because you need to stay for the whole meeting when you come to speak to us because it shows us that you care about everything that's going on with us. So thank you all for still being here. That means a lot. As you can see, a lot of people speak and leave, and they don't even know the business that we do after they are gone. So it's very meaningful. I do have a lot of concerns for the things that they've raised. Things have changed a lot since 2013. Oh my God, I can't even imagine how much things have changed since 2013. I have a school that's coming out of the ground, though, right now that's going to expand to a K-8. It's a neighborhood school, Davidson, K-8, and that's what they want. It's because the 2 other charter schools in Davidson are K-8 also. So that's something that the community had asked for. So I caution a lot of negativity about just a K-8 in general because there are one very successful community K-8, neighborhood school K-8. It's called Mountain Island STEM Academy. It may sound like a magnet, but it's not. It's a neighborhood school, and it's very successful. And we are preparing, Dr. Hayes is up there. I know we're preparing for a very successful K-8 transition at Davidson as well. So K-8s are great. They can be great neighborhood schools as well as magnets. So I would not hang your hat on that one. But serious overcrowding relief does need to happen. And I'm happy that you have so many different community engagement sessions with this community. We really need to rethink where we were in 2013 because so much has changed. There's a lot of precedent for that from my board members from previous situations where we have changed what we were going to do. because a bond stretched out so long. We saw a lot of that in the '07 timeframe because we couldn't spend the money. During the recession, the county wouldn't allocate money for several years. So we had a lot of projects that were 6 and 7 years out that didn't make sense anymore. Down in the Palisades area and some of that, we had to restructure when schools were coming out of the ground, and we had to change some decisions about what was going where. So we need to honor what we committed to in the bond, which was a relief school, but it may not need to necessarily look exactly like what we thought it was going to look like or be what we thought it was going to be in 2013. So I just urge the staff and the board to be open-minded and make sure we're delivering the community what they need.
Thank you. Well, seeing no one else's hand, okay.
Sorry.
Ms. Dashew.
I attended the community meeting at J.M. Robinson, and I got to the very end of the community meeting at Community House last night. And I really do, and I've met with a lot of you, in outside of meetings. So I really appreciate all the time and energy that the community in South Charlotte is putting into advocating for your schools. I just know that one takeaway from the two community engagement exercises was that I saw that a lot of people there got a sense for how hard this is and how many trade-offs there are. And so hopefully you understand what we're wrestling with and that there's no magic wand, easy answer. Whatever we decide, we'll have trade-offs that we've really got to think through all the cascading effects. And I, as an at-large representative, am thinking about the cascading effects all over the county and also fairness all over the county. And so just know that that's what's in my heart. I want what is best for your kids, and I want what is best for Governor's Village kids, for the volunteers who spoke up tonight. And I know we have a Byers teacher here. I want what's best for the Byers kids, and this is all of what we're balancing. So thank you, Akeisha, for a very thoughtful process, and I will trust the process and wait for your staff's recommendations, and we will weigh all the pros and cons and come up with our best solution. But I am open-minded to how things change over the years, and we just need to make sure that whatever we do is fair and it's for best for kids.
Okay, Mr. Strain, and then Ms. Byers-Bailey.
So, Akeisha, I want to thank you first and foremost for yourself and your team and the effort that you've put into this, the community engagement sessions that have been run and also those that are planned. As a member of the community and a representative of the community, it's no surprise that I've spoken to quite a few folks, particularly since you held the community engagement session at JM. But that's not where this conversation started in our community. This conversation really started about 1.5 years ago, looking forward to what this facility needed to be and what the community wanted it to be in order to make sure that our community could fully embrace this school and make it a success, the way that we know that every one of our schools needs the community buy-in and commitment to a school to make it. And so I appreciate the superintendents, my fellow board members, and certainly your office's work in terms of engaging the community, listening, and understanding what our community wants and needs today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Strain. Ms. Byers-Bailey?
Thank you. Akeisha, I really appreciate the amount of time that has been spent getting the community input for Ray Road. I'm looking forward to the schedule. Ray Farms, sorry. Ray Farms. And I'm looking forward to a similar schedule of input for community regarding the use of the Lincoln Heights facility. The community has waited a long time to get this facility back. And when it was first mentioned, the possibility of there being a magnet school in that property was proposed, since there does not seem to be a need for relief from the other schools. And District 2 doesn't have a magnet school and doesn't have a Montessori school. That was the initial thought regarding that use of that property. And I know there are people in District 2 who have been waiting for a Montessori school to come to District 2, and I think that would be a great location for it. So I'm interested to hear what the community has to say now.
Absolutely, yes. And that's very much our next step for the Lincoln Heights facility.
Do you have some possible dates for when you will be doing community input for that?
I do not at this time, but I will draft some and share them with the superintendent and vet them with the board, and then we'll share them with the community.
All right, thank you.
Seeing no one else willing to speak and ask you a question, you are dismissed. Thank you very much.
Get another presentation.
Next is our Management Oversight Report, Career and Technical Education. I turn to the superintendent for that report.
So I will ask Akeisha Craven-Howell and Susan Gann to come forward once again. And I'll remind you to be bold, be brief, and be seated.
Yes, sir. It is a pleasure to share with you an update on career and technical education. This is work within the district that has seen a resurgence over the past 2 or 3 years, and we've really accelerated what these programs are helping our students to accomplish. And so I will turn this over to the Director of Career and Technical Education, Susan Gann.
Thank you. I am very excited to be here and share the success over the last year and the growth that we've been experiencing. And I will hit the highlights. Before I begin, though, I just really quickly want to acknowledge the team and ask if they would stand, please. This is part of our team that has worked extraordinarily hard in the last 2 years. And I also want to acknowledge Ashley Campbell, who has just joined us in the last year as our assistant director and has made a major difference in my life in moving this work forward. And so we are very happy to have them here tonight supporting this report.
Thank you, and thank you for wearing your uniforms tonight.
So I wanted to start with just a quick snippet from our homepage of our newly launched CTE website. And I think that it's very exciting. We're getting lots of positive feedback, and we're seeing lots of upticks in the data. We're monitoring that. We believe that our job is to make sure that our students become those productive citizens in the world and world changers, someone that can go on the scene and make a difference. And we believe that can be done through CTE. So how do we do that? We really do it through pathways and work-based learning and instruction. So those continue to be our key strategies, and you can see our indicators there. And really, we feel that CTE is really for all students, because whether you are going to a four-year university or you're going direct to work or you're going to an associate's degree or an apprenticeship, CTE can play a role in making sure that students have well-defined career goals once they leave high school, and they're not guessing what they think they should do next. They actually know. We're also very excited about, we've called this the year of the middle school, and the reason we've called that is because we feel like the pathways that we've put into place at the high school level, we now need to make sure matriculate down to the middle school. So although we don't have it fully minted yet, we do that as funding allows. We're very excited to say that we have 30 and actually 32, because I was able to open up 2 more today in 20 middle schools. And 11 of those are the Computer Science Discoveries, which is a new course from DPI that cascades over 3 years, and we believe is going to be a great feeder course for all of our software development pathways, which is a very lucrative career here in Charlotte, one of many. So this is our pathway development strategy. We are really working to get all of our 9th and 10th grade students in schools that are in CTE identified with the pathway, and in the CTE, if you have not looked at discovercte.com, I invite you to go explore around and watch the videos. They're very fun. You get to see our kids in play as they're going through those courses. It's a stated sequence, and that sequence we're in the process of validating through industry, although we did not put the sequence in place without industry input first. We right now have 5,300 students that are now aligned to pathways, and we will begin monitoring that. It's the first time that we've actually had a pull from schools as to who is in a pathway, who identifies. This is the beginning of that work, and it's going to take us a few years to pull that through. We also are monitoring our concentrators. You can see that they're growing, but we also believe that it's only going to get better and tighter with students as they learn in schools, as they learn how to program within those pathways. Summer interns, these are my summer interns. They were phenomenal. I just want to encourage anyone who has an opportunity to pull in a summer intern to please do so. I also want to acknowledge that we have a couple of partnerships that tie into our work-based learning, so that's a very key strategy for us. And the opportunity that we had to partner with Junior Achievement was great to develop our Job Connect program that is a part of really building our seniors who are in a strategy where we need to make sure that all seniors, whether they are a part of that CTE pathway, have an opportunity to actually action on what I call an early career, which means it's a career pathway that may not require additional education, but just simply requires them to be engaged and networked with some of our major employers. I also want to give a shout out for Dr. Wilcox and his vision to work with Rick Elias with Red Ventures and building a really amazing program at Geringer. We now have 18 students that are really committed to the introductory process to Road to Hire. And these are students who would not have self-identified themselves in a software pathway, but actually through the process of really just exposing the entire junior class of Geringer to Red Ventures, we now have 18 students who are self-identifying themselves as potential coders. And that's an amazing pilot that we are engaging with Red Venture. When we think about our summer interns, I want us to also think about how do we get more internships. So you'll see that our numbers for exposing students to the training through Mayor's Youth, we are so grateful for our partnership with Mayor's Youth Employment and for the role they play in supporting our work and supporting our students. But I also want to say that we are very excited that last year Dr. Wilcox allowed us to step up to the plate with the city and the county to have our own summer interns. And so we had 65 summer interns last summer. We're working to place 100 interns this summer. And the feedback from everyone who had them was just phenomenal. And so it's really something that we don't want anyone to miss out, because it's an opportunity for us in education who maybe don't get to touch the classroom as often as we would like to really engage and support our students to finding their dreams. The other part I want to just point out in the data, you can see the data, is that we do have a drop in the eligible students for placement, but part of that issue really lies in the availability of internships. So the 18-year-old cutoff it's real, and so in moving to increase those numbers, we really have to work at talking with our corporate partners about the certificate of insurance that we provide and helping them see a way to bring our students into their workforce, because it really is an engagement strategy for pipeline development. It's not really charity work, and that's, I think, a key message that everyone needs to understand. So we continue to work at that, and we're also looking at layered strategies of how to augment from just a traditional intern into other opportunities that might look different, where employers can come in versus students going to employers. Finally, our third strategy is really around our instruction, and as we know, we need really quality instruction. And I want to give a shout out to our teachers. They have been working really hard at aligning their curriculum and making sure that they are delivering what they need to students. We have some gaps, and we have some things that we definitely need to be working on, and we are. One of those, when you think about lifting 83 courses, that's a lot, and these are 83 very different courses. So in an effort to begin to move the dial, we focused on 10 courses to say, what can we do to support that? We also created, just as any other curriculum would, content area, a data file that included detailed teacher-by-teacher growth points, school success, so that way we knew exactly what the targets were. We also last year redefined 2 roles at the school level so that we had one person 100% dedicated to instructional support. And the other person is dedicated to not only testing and technology, but also to owning the pathways. And so we think that those 2 positions are really going to help us move the work forward in instruction and also move the work forward in pathway alignment. We also are doing some combination work where we've, instead of thinking of central office as a team, we've really pulled in all of our instructional facilitators, and we have a joint instructional meeting so that everyone is on the same page. So you see from the data that we really are flatlined in the wrong part of the chart. We want to see that increase. 5% may not seem like much, but at the same time, again, moving to support 83 different courses is a large lift. So we are constantly thinking and breathing and trying to figure out what is the next step to help support our teachers, where we have some students with gaps in learning, we have training that needs to happen for teachers, and what can we do next with that. Point of celebration is the growth in certification. So an early indicator that this strategy is moving forward is that our teachers, everyone from the teachers, students, everyone is embracing the idea that it is a right of our students in a CTE course to walk out with an industry certification that is tied to that course. And so I'm happy to show you that the difference in the growth. At the end of first semester last year, we had 1,200 certifications. At the end of last year, we had 3,622. As it stands right now, at the end of first semester, we have 2,730 certifications earned by 2,125 students. And that is amazing. Those are not just, low-hanging fruit. We have our first 13 MTA, Microsoft Technical Associate Software and Database Fundamental. That's real dollars. Those are students that will be able to walk out and walk into an employment opportunity that is a $55,000, $60,000 opportunity with continued growth. So I'm very proud of the team and proud of our teachers for digging in and really making this happen for our students. Also want to point to a success indicator is really about college and career promise. So ultimately, we feel like if we've hit the mark for a student and they find their passion, they complete the pathway, a true indicator that they've really nailed it is that they make that choice to go into the next course at the community college if that's where the next course path is for them. So you can see that we are continuing to grow in the CTE courses that are taken at the community college and also growing in the number of students that are taking those as well. Finally, we're building CTE Pride. So the discovercte.com is the first step of many. At the community meeting at West Charlotte, we debuted our standing banners that all schools will be receiving. They're in the design process. We will have pathway foam boards in every classroom. We will also bring that down to the middle school so that the middle school will have in the CTE classrooms and hopefully posted in other places in the building. What is CTE? How do you action it? What do you need to do? And how do you really make your dreams come true in your early career in high school? I also just want to give a shout out to our competitions. As you know, competitions are a big part of CTE. And last year, we're in competition season right now. Last year, we had 30 first place and 25 second place winners. We've just had our cosmetology students earn several first place awards in Skills USA. And I could go on, but I'm going to stop there. So any questions that you may have?
Okay. Ms. Marshall? Just want to make a few comments. This is the area I'm just so excited about. I just get excited every time I talk to Susan. I don't think she sleeps very much. I just want to say that, she and her team have made us all understand that our students aren't all alike and they're not all aware of the possibilities. And so I appreciate the fact that the pathways are working beginning in middle school with awareness happening for those high school students and for those students that
didn't get there for whatever reason. We've got some Job Connect work where the soft skills are being emphasized because that's what we hear all the time. And so this soft skills work, I think, is so important to our kids and gives them some confidence to succeed wherever they need to succeed. And the fact that you've really put a high dollar value on these certifications, and they're not just small little pieces of a paper certificate. They mean something, and they will mean something in a paycheck. So thank you for your team, and thank you for everybody with CTE, because I think it's just fabulous.
Dr. Jones?
Thank you as well, Ms. Gann. The public is not always aware of the extraordinary, marvelous opportunities in Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools. And we really have an array that, quite frankly, everyone should be proud of, and I would just like for the community at large to have a big awareness. With that said, I have several friends who are in the business of early child care, and they are always nudging me about, do I know students who would be work and get some income? Has there been any discussion of adding new pathways or certifications, especially along the line of early childhood?
So
child care.
Yes, so great question. So we have the Early Teachers College. We know that if someone's going to be interested in teaching or early childhood, it's going to take a 4-year degree to really action upon that outside of perhaps being an aide in a daycare. So we look at that pathway as being one that's a college bound. So we have had conversations about it. It is a large lift to put a program like that in a school, simply because the early childhood piece, there are many, it takes a lot of space and a lot of specially designed space for entrances and exits and bathrooms and, you know, involvement with a regular student body. So it's a little bit of a longer lens to figure out, well, how does this fit and where does it fit? But it is on the radar as something that we need. It's just taking a little bit longer to figure out how do we make that work so that we're getting the bump that we need and getting kids engaged in it as we want to.
Yes, I am very aware of the very tedious guidelines that they have, the state has for the young babies and children up through age 3 and even 4 years of age. Such things as, you know, how the distance between the little beds and all kinds of things that they come in and measure for, and it's quite a burden. But it is an opportunity, and it's very difficult, I understand, to get young people to work as assistants in those classrooms. And so if we could work through some of the problems, I know it is an expensive endeavor.
Yes, I'm hearing you, and I will absolutely make sure that I keep you updated.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
I just want to say that one of my favorite things to do in meeting with community members is to be able to pull out the CTE brochure, because most people are unaware of the amazing options that we have and are floored when they see what's available. So thank you.
Excellent.
Board members, let me recognize the group up top before they leave. They are AP Government students from Providence Day, and they came to get some class credit by being here at our board meeting. So thank you all for being here tonight. Okay, Ms. Ellis Stewart.
Thank you for your report and for the time your staff has put into this. I do have just a couple of questions for you. To Dr. Jones's point, there are a lot of folks in our community, parents and others, who are not completely aware or aware at all that we offer this pathway and that it has so many twists and turns. We've done the CTE fair. We've had a lot of marketing in the last little bit. do you have any sense at this point what return on investment we're having on the marketing side as it relates back to people, children who get enrolled in the program and that are newly participating?
So I think that we are getting small little nuggets. So for example, when I'm having community conversations around the bond projects, I'm hearing more parents talking about and understanding the options for their students, that it's not, they don't have to think always about the 4-year being the only path. I think the key lever, and I think we're going to look at, in fact, I emailed Tracy today about doing some major campaigns, because I think we're ready and we're poised to do that. So I feel like over in the fall and over the summer, we can put some things into place to really make, possibly billboards, what are some things that really get the word out? Because the website, you're right, we passed out magnets at the CTE fair, and we're trusting social media to get that around. I will say that I think that our school support folks do the most for us in that word of mouth, because they're the ones that go into the middle school and really are bridging that gap. You may or may not have heard about Whitewater and West Meck and how they have been working in concert together. And that probably does the most word of mouth than anything that we have done to date. So I would say that small return on investment, but I think it's going to only grow, and I think it'll grow exponentially.
I think that will be a good place for some investment, and I hope Tracy also has something that will go out to parents of 5th graders who are getting ready to matriculate into the 6th grade. You'll have a bumper crop coming in. The other question that I have for you, I know we have had some incremental growth of our students who participate in the Mayor's Youth Employment Program, and Dawn has worked to add bits and pieces every year, which is amazing. I don't know if this exists already, but I would love to see Charlotte Mecklenburg partner. For all of the kids who participate in that youth employment summer internship, if they do it for multiple years, it would be amazing if a portion of what the company pays them could go into a college saving plan, so that they would have some dollars set aside to assist them when they go off to school. I don't know if that's something that you and Dawn and her committee have talked about, but I think many of the employers in the community would be willing to support something like that.
I think it's a fantastic idea. She and I put our heads together regularly and come up with all kinds of schemes. She is a devoted work partner and colleague of mine, and so I think that's I love that idea.
Me too. And then the last question that I have for you, I know we've been rolling out the Summer Ventures, the Red Ventures program. We're offering transportation stipends. We're offering all kinds of things to get the young people and the emerging adults involved. Are there barriers that we did not think about in terms of their participation? Or are we getting the numbers in the areas of the community engaged to this program?
So specifically the General Road to Hire, they do their promotion throughout our schools. And from talking with Red Venture, it sounds like they really have stepped up, and they are centered on taking the barriers away, which is awesome. I really think transportation remains the number one barrier. It's the number one barrier for students who go to a school and their bus line does not go right up to that bus line. So I appreciate Board Member Sawyer for her efforts to have that conversation with the city so that we can begin to build an opportunity for CMS to help the CATS transportation actually take that barrier away. I feel like that's the main piece, and then the 18-year-old is the other barrier.
Thank you.
Ms. Cheek.
Hey, thank you for being here tonight. You know that I'm just a huge proponent. This is something I've worked on. I'm super excited because I'm pretty sure for the last 3 times this has been presented, I've said we really need to do something in the middle schools to tie it together. So just knowing that that's in the works is such a huge opportunity. And, you know, talking about how do we get the word out? Well, middle school students, that just, it's exponential then, because it's another thing to grab them and keep kids involved and engaged in their education. Kids that may otherwise think they don't have a good path and they may drop out. But if they know that there's a good paying job out there that they can continue and that we're going to help them on that pathway, it's a huge opportunity, and I'm super excited that we've come to this point where we're actually now doing it and implementing it. So very excited there. I think the coolest thing we did last year was we actually had the signing day for the kids that were at the Electrical Institute, and we treated it just like the kids that signed their NCAA college athletic deals. These kids signed their electricians contracts. Dr. Hayes is up there. He was a part of this little gathering. But, and we've increased that program. But I think when we do things like that, because, you know, it's the same kind of thing. We're giving these kids an opportunity for their future, just like an athletic scholarship. But this is a different kind of pathway. So we need to really find cute ways that we can do that. I see things on Facebook and people are like, why don't we do this here? Well, we actually did it last year. It's just we're not being able to get it out there enough. And I think we're definitely, with the media right now, have a disadvantage because there aren't really that many dedicated education reporters here tonight, you know, gathering our story and hearing what you're saying. So we're at a disadvantage. So we rely on the parents and the people that are here. I'm sorry, I was going to say, there are not any of them over there right now. There's none. So, so thank you for that. Let's just keep chugging away at this. There's so many opportunities out there, and I know you're creating them as fast as you can. This, to me, is the future for us, because regardless of whether you're going into a four-year degree, another big thing I see is with kids that are going to go straight into manufacturing or into advanced manufacturing, I want us to make sure that they have a path option for continuing their education also. I'm starting to see in my work that I do as a case manager, a lot of 50-plus-year-old manufacturing employees that are physically now needing to have a job that may have less physical demands. And without any college or without any other advanced education, they're struggling to find work that is not too physically demanding for them. So I think we also have to balance the push for people into workforce manufacturing jobs to make sure that they do continue with some other education so that they have a lot of options in the future. So thank you very much, and just keep it moving. Keep the train on the tracks and moving fast. Thank you.
Ms. Dashiell?
So I will be quick because I know this has been a long night and a long day, but this is just solid work. And this is really big systemic change that I feel like it's going to make a big difference. And thank you and your team for your work on this. Usually this sort of systems work happens at a snail's pace because that is the nature of this kind of hard work. But with your team, this is not happening at a snail's pace, it's happening at a lightning pace. And I think that's part of why the community isn't quite aware of it yet, but I know that that's going to change, and we all can play a role in that. So yeah, just this weekend, several of us board members were in a youth forum where we were told CMS needs to start focusing on CTE certifications. And so we will get that word out. And so that's all I wanted to say is thank you for this great work, and I can't wait for more people to learn about it, especially students and their families, so that more students start taking advantage of these opportunities, because I really think this is going to grow quickly.
Thank you. Okay. Ms. Ella Stewart, one quick follow-up.
Yeah, I'm sorry I missed my question on here. Are there other emerging or current market areas that we are not including that we need to include, and how soon can we bring those to market within our program?
So I think the early childhood is one of those areas. Other than that, I think that we have, the next thing is, of course, things like drones, cybersecurity, some of those things that we have not built into the curriculum. DPI is coming forth with new courses in those areas that we will take a look at and figure out how do we blend that in. A feedback from one of our CTE advisory board members when they opened the Sixfold was, wow, this is overwhelming. So we're trying to keep it so that it doesn't get so complex, but at the same time, It is a great time to be a high schooler in Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools. Your opportunity is unbelievable. So we want to make sure that we don't miss a beat and miss something that kids who maybe didn't see themselves in one of the pathways would have seen themselves in something else. So those are the two that come to top of mind, but we've done a really good job of interfacing with the Charlotte Works, with the Chamber, industry partners to really cull out what are the big nuggets. And you'll notice in that sixfold that it's separated into high demand and the other pathways, which does not mean that there's no demand for those. It's really more about a replacement workforce versus a growth and a replacement.
Thank you very much, Susan, for your report and your team. Now we move to the report from the superintendent. I turn to the superintendent for his report.
Well, take off your shoes, get out some snacks, because we're going to go a while. No, just kidding. Just kidding. Just kidding. I really have three things, and I'll be quick. One, some board members have asked me, had we been spending time talking about the continuous learning calendar schools? Yes, we have. Ray Barnes is leading that work for us, and right now we're looking at some specialized program for 150 students at Bruns Academy, partnering with DigiBridge, and really looking at some other ideas like STEM and a pop-up produce garden with associated field trips to make that happen. In addition to that, we're looking at Bruns Academy opening up both the library and some other common spaces during the school day so that young people have both a cool place to go in terms of the actual outside temperature, but also have the opportunity to be in a cool place with some cool adults who are going to be there with them. We're looking at a budget for each of these programs at about $40,000. We haven't finalized that with Sheila Shirley. In fact, it might be the first she's hearing it right now. But Ray said that that's really what it's probably going to take to make this go. At Thomasboro Academy, we're talking about an academic enrichment math and literacy summit for about 200 kids with some trips scheduled to Discovery Place, Farmers Market, and Imaginon. At Walter G. Byers, we're looking at a program for about 150 kids that's focused on STEM. And at Druid Hills Academy, we're looking at about 250 kids and a coding experience for kids and a farm-to-table experience for kids. So we're working hard at doing something that's valuable to the young people, valuable to the community. Ray and the team are building these things out, and we'll have more information for you later. But it's a combination of school-based, using our food service team and others on our campuses, some of our support personnel, some of our teachers, and then some community-based programming as well. We thought that that's what the board was kind of indicated. They did not want us just to leave these kids after the calendar change. So we'll report more probably at the next board meeting when Ray and his team have had a little more time to finalize summer employment relationships with people, as well as some of the contracts with some of our community partners. The second thing I wanted to mention today is May 1st, and I see some people hanging out probably wondering, like, what is he going to say now? What I am going to say to the board is that we're monitoring the situation very closely, and right now we have about 150 people a day calling in for a personal leave day on that. Today the total was 1,227 Charlotte-Mecklenburg teachers who plan to be gone for that day. An additional 107 support employees have also called in to use some form of leave. So our team has been talking internally as recently as this morning about how we'll address this day going forward. We're not prepared to make any announcement today because we want to continue to talk and see what the scope is. But I will tell the board that at this point it would be very difficult for us to cover just those 1,200 vacancies. And so I really think that we'll make a decision probably by Thursday or Friday of this week so we can communicate with our families, so we can give our teachers the time to make their plans and to allow our community to make their time plans. Again, I'm not prepared to make an announcement tonight, but I will also mention one last thing in terms of that. I am coordinating any announcement that we make with Wake and some of the other larger school systems. We've all been talking, because one of the things that we know is if CMS goes out, then some of the surrounding districts are likely to follow suit in stronger numbers. And in some of those communities, there are some fairly conservative forces at work that would really put people in the crosshairs. And so we want to make sure that we do this with some thought and some care so that none of our teachers or none of the local neighboring teachers get caught in a difficult place. And we're also trying to balance the needs of our families, because quite honestly, there are many families who can't just afford another day off of work. to take care of their children. And yet, we understand this board and others have talked about the importance of teacher voice, so we'll try to balance all of those things in the next coming few days, and I'll be in contact with you as board members before we make any announcement about what we intend to do. The last thing I want to mention is that tomorrow night there is a community meeting at Valentine, and I think that's probably why you guys are staying here, to see if I would mention it. Honestly, I hope you go. I really don't. No. I do want to say one thing, and I typically don't respond to audiences because I don't think it's fair to you that I get to sit here with a microphone and talk, and then you don't get to respond to me. But I do want to say that this board has encouraged me to think differently about some of the things that we're doing. My staff has encouraged me to think differently about some of the things that we're doing, and quite frankly, I wasn't here in 2000 and whenever this decision was made. So I'm struggling with some of the decisions that were made myself, and I'm pushing back against some of our board members. So I look forward to the conversation tomorrow night, where I think we're going to surface some ideas that perhaps are a little bit different than what we've been talking about. But I also want to say to you, I think it's been very important that the community gets a single message, and that's why from the meeting that was held a week ago to the meeting that was held earlier this week, there was no change in message, because we didn't want to confuse the community with competing messages. And so I simply want you to say that the first time you might hear something different from CMS will be tomorrow night. But at the end of the day, it's this table of folks who have to make that decision. So it's not something that the superintendent can do alone. They do rely on my recommendations, and I thank them for that. But I do want you to know that we've heard you this evening. This board has heard you this evening. But as Elise Dasher said a moment ago, they have tremendous competing issues that they have to deal with. The overcrowding, while it is really difficult in the southern part of this county, is also true in other parts of this county as well. And there are other issues that are even as compelling as an overcrowded classroom, in a classroom that perhaps we can't air condition or we can't heat, that we've got to address as well. So please know that we heard you. I'll see you tomorrow night, and it should be a fun conversation.
Thank you. At this time, we will have our report from board members, and I'll recognize any board member who wishes to make a report. And Kendall, I'll ask if you have anything to report on. Let you go first instead of last.
That's amazing. I don't have too much to say tonight. I know I was taking a lot of notes, kind of taking it in. I will bring it back to my fellow students to hear their reports on, but I just was listening. Let's say that. So, yes.
All right, thank you. All right, Dr. Jones, I saw your hand first.
Yes, and I'm just bursting at the seam to share 3 opportunities I had a couple of weeks ago with 3 fantastic school experiences that just left me jubilant. I want to highlight the opportunity I had to revel in a boss-up experience at Garinger High School in Ms. Daniel Imhoff's leadership development class. The students were informed, articulate, and confident leaders. They identified 5 critical areas impacting their lives and lives of the citizens of Charlotte-Mecklenburg. Their extensive and intensive research in mental health, sex trafficking, gentrification, poverty, and gun violence. Their analysis and problem solutions were insightful. I really can compare their work to a college graduate class. Boss up. That I learned too while I was there. The second superior student experience was at First Ward Creative Arts Academy. Students there gave a superb performance of Mary Poppins Jr. The staging was built by students was great, and Mary Poppins, she owned that role. And parents, grandparents, and supporters came out in such large numbers that we may need to look at a larger venue. Congratulations on a spectacular performance, First Ward. My last one was the delight I had in Governor's Village Academy to read to Ms. Whitener's 5th grade class. I chose to do interactive reading of 2 short poems that required critical thinking. on the students' part. It was very apparent, Mr. Kingsley, that rigor and high expectation in Ms. Whitener's class is exactly what she exacts from her students. Her expertise in guiding students to higher order thinking skills about our reading made this old teacher lean back and grin. So I had all of that experience in 1 week's time, and it was just probably one of the best weeks I've had on the school board.
Ms. Byers-Bailey.
Thank you. District 2 has been busy. We had community meetings for two projects were on our 2017 bond. One was the Relief High School in the southern Palisades area, and the other one was the Replacement High School at West Charlotte. Both got an opportunity to see mock-up drawing, mock-up 3D presentations of what their respective schools would look like, as well as a topographical presentation of where the school structures would be versus the parking lots and the ball fields. And the community had lots of questions, was very, very interactive, and they were very excited about what they were seeing. Before Dr. Wilcox runs away again, I had a question for him. You gave a presentation, a very brief update on the continuous learning calendar proposals for the summer. And you stressed what the opportunities would be for the students. My question is, how many of the faculty that would have earned money during the summer will be involved in those opportunities?
I don't have the, excuse me, I don't have the answer to that right now, but we'll get it for the board. Part of what Dr. Barnes is doing right now is kind of right-sizing the program to the number of students. That's why we've put an estimated budget, not a final budget in. If the students don't show, then we won't use as many adults, but if the students show, we'll use a full complement of adults.
Okay. The one final thing, well, final couple of things. Like I said, District 2 has been real busy. Northwest School of the Arts gave a musical presentation just last weekend of Freaky Friday. I don't know if how many of you all remember that, but it was they did three productions of it, one on Friday evening and one on Saturday afternoon and Saturday evening. I do believe they were sold out, all three. The line was wrapped around the auditorium with people trying to get in. And I'm told that it was an awesome, my grandson went and he thoroughly enjoyed it. Finally, I'd like to mention, as we were talking about CTE this evening, the team at Olympic is very proud that they won, let's see, they're the proud team comprised of partners from Lenovo, NAF, Avid, Exchange, and the Olympic High School. Was a finalist again for the Blue Diamond Best in Charlotte Technology Award for the collaboration with the teens that had to develop essential skills while building a model app over the school year designed to solve problems important to youths. They have won this award, the Best of Charlotte Technology Award, 3 times in the past 4 years. And it's an annual award determined by members of the Charlotte Area Technology Collaborative. So, you know, we don't just have the technology CTE classes and the pathways and the diplomas. We're also producing students that are actually winning awards with the things that they're doing in CTE.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Ella Stewart.
Thank you. I wasn't going to give a report because it was going to prolong my time with this migraine under these lights, but I feel like it's really important. April is National Child Abuse Prevention Month, and that's something that we don't spend enough time talking about in our community, and I think that's why we see so much of it. In our community, and by our community, I mean the state of North Carolina, in the 12-month period of July 2016 to June 2017, there were 124,404 cases of children who had an investigated report of possible abuse and neglect. That's a lot of kids. That's almost as many kids in the Charlotte-Mecklenburg school system that are experiencing, whether it's physical, sexual, psychological abuse or neglect across our state. And I think it's important to talk about this, one, so that as parents and caregivers, we can make sure that we and our friends and those that we know have the protective factors to nurture and bond with their kids in amazing ways that can prevent the type of abuse that is documented in many of these cases. I want to bring our community's attention to a number of resources. One is a national resource. It's the childwelfare.gov work website. And on there, in recognition of Child Abuse Prevention Month, they do have a number of tip sheets that really provide just some good information, from everything to managing stress. And we know how toxic stress not only impacts our children, but how it impacts those who care for them. It talks about, if you're in a military family, how to manage those stresses, how to parent after there's been domestic violence in your home, how to make healthy connections within your family, how to deal with temper tantrums, your own as well as those of children, so that we don't get to the place where we see abuse in our homes and in our communities. I mentioned that there are 124,404 kids within our state. If you look at the data in Mecklenburg County, starting with about 1998, we had under 7,000 cases, unique cases that were investigated annually. Now we're up to about 15,000 in our own county. And I want to bring to the adults in this room and to the adults who are watching, those who are teachers and school administrators and individuals who work directly with kids, all of those individuals are mandatory reporters. But as the adults in our community, we all have a duty to report any suspected abuse and or neglect. And you might be wondering, how do I do that? And so in every county, the Department of Social Services, or DSS, is typically that organization where you report those instances or those concerns. The number here in Mecklenburg County for DSS is 704-336-3000. That's the general line. They also have an emergency line, which is 704-336-2273. And when you go to make a referral or report, you might be wondering, do I have to give my name? Do I have to give my phone number? You're not required to give that information, but what you do need is the name of the child, their age, the address, the name of the parent or the caregiver who you suspect may be abusing that child. If you do give your name, they will follow up with you, not to tell you the specifics of the investigation, but whether or not they will investigate. And so I think a lot of people may suspect something, but they may not say something. And I always tell people to see something, say something, because it's important for our children. Lastly, if you're not really sure, what do some of these things look like? If you go on the state's website, they do lay out what does it look like when a young person or a child might be being abused. And that website is preventchildabusenc.org. They even have an online class that any of us can take that talks about what you should look for and the steps that you should take. So with that,
Thank
get me
you.
from under the lights.
County has a wonderful billboard as you're coming off the highway. right there that you can see every day. All right, Ms. Sawyer?
Thank you. I had the opportunity to hear students from 4 different high schools tell their stories, sometimes very personal stories, all very compelling stories. East Mecklenburg High School students had a TEDx day that was phenomenal, and it was wonderful and inspiring to hear students talking about their life experiences, their life plans, and the challenges that they faced. I heard students from Geringer, Myers Park, and Philippa Berry, students at the Wake Up Summit also sharing their stories and their research about issues of concern in the community, and was joined by several board members there, and the students do an amazing job. So kudos to Geringer, Myers Park, Philippa Berry, and East Mech. I also attended the second annual Charlotte Opportunity Research Showcase, and this was a UNCC program talking about research based on the Leading Up Opportunity, and heard some really compelling research, especially around literacy, early supporting students. There was a research presentation on a program conducted by a couple of UNCC professors at Our Bridge for Kids, a summer program, summer reading program, that had a 2-to-1 teacher-pupil ratio for part of the day. They had volunteers from Aldersgate trained in active reading for another hour, and traditional camp activities for the rest of the day. The reading gains that these students made were phenomenal, and these were students who were not being successful, and they were brought in the 4 weeks they advanced tremendously. In some cases, a student who had been scheduled to be retained was no longer retained. The program was expensive, but I think we need to look at cost in terms of cost savings at $1,000 for 4 weeks to get a student to not only stop summer slide, but actually really advance their reading proficiency saves us money in the future. And I want to thank those folks. There was another program with researchers working in schools to really build relationships between teachers and students. We talk a lot about building relationships, but no one is teaching students how to build those relationships. And this team was doing just that and found some real transformative classroom environments when they actively taught teachers how to build those relationships. So there's some great research happening in our partner institutions, and I hope we can take advantage of some of that.
Interesting.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Marshall, and then Ms. Cheek.
Because Dr. Jones talked about the performing arts magnet in her district, got to give a shout out to Greenway Park, because while Mary Poppins was floating down from the sky, we had Aladdin on the magic carpet floating up. So I want to give a shout to them and their incredible scenery and their costumes and just the great work they're doing at Greenway Park.
Okay, Ms. Cheek.
And I'm just going to give a quick shout out to the Bailey Middle School Odyssey of the Mind team. They won the state championship last weekend, and they are going to be representing North Carolina and CMS at the National Odyssey of the Mind. I think it's in Tennessee. I can't remember now where they said they're headed, but they're going to be representing us, and I'm super proud of them. They've worked very hard.
That's great.
Awesome.
Mr. Strain.
So I'd like to thank our staff and indeed our community in the Ballantyne-Providence area for the work they've been doing to ensure our implementation of the Ray Farms facility is consistent with the needs and desires of the community today. I'd also like to thank my colleague, Ms. Cheek, for reminding us that there is a strong precedent for re-examining capital plans late in a bond cycle and responding to the current community and district needs. And finally, I want to thank the speakers this evening for bringing forward the voice of the community. We need the community's support of our new school at Ray Farms as we do with all of our schools. I look forward to continuing to work with our local community in the Ballantyne-Providence area to make sure that we listen, respond, and deliver a facility and a program that's well supported and adopted by the community that it serves.
Thank you. Ms. Dashew?
Well, first, Ms. Ellis Stewart, thank you for lifting up this being Child Abuse Prevention or Awareness Month, and the symbolic color for that is blue, and that's why I'm wearing blue tonight, along with red for Ed. And so I have had, similar to Dr. Jones, I have just had such a busy and joyful month of meetings with students and teachers and parents all over the county. So I am going to now try to talk as fast as the guy in the old FedEx commercial so that I can get through it all and then we can go home. But I just want to have so much to lift up tonight. First of all, thank you to all the families who came out to the J.M. Robinson and Community House engagement forums. At Independence High School last night, thank you to, I think there were several dozen parents who came to weigh in on our new curriculum choices and actually meet with curriculum vendors and give us feedback on those change. I've never seen that kind of engagement in CMS as we're making a curriculum change. So despite the thunder and lightning, several dozen parents came out to show up for that, and I thought that was awesome. Pop-up Village at West Charlotte this weekend was so fun and so informative. So thanks for all the friends who showed up for that. I've had 2 opportunities to get out to Governor's Village, which is just a bustling, vibrant school community right now. Really excited about how things are coming together there. So I was there for the Race to Educate 5K last weekend, and then also had an opportunity to read with first graders, which was just a beautiful experience. Teacher Talks blew me away. They get better every year. These are like TED Talks for teachers, and teachers get to share inspirational, transformative things that they have learned in their classrooms that inspire other teachers and really inspire us all. So those videos of those teacher talks are now starting to come out, and recommend you check them out if you need a lift in your spirits. This is just, we've had a proliferation of powerful youth voice in our district. So my colleagues have already mentioned the TEDx 100% student organized TEDx event at East Meck, the powerful stories and evidence-based research projects that the Wake Up students shared. The S for Students for Educational Reform students also had a youth forum this weekend, and there was another youth forum on youth solutions to violence, which is just incredibly important to pay attention to right now because the kids are the ones that are going to point us towards the solutions. And last but not least, for Youth Voice, the Mecklenburg PTA Reflections Art Contest winners were just tremendous. Some of those poems and paintings and dances and musical pieces that they composed, really just so much talent in our schools, and we don't focus enough on that. So I have a lot of people who, when they hear that I'm on the school board, they say, "Oh, bless your heart, thank you for doing that. I don't know how you could," but it really gives me so much joy to be able to have these experiences and witness these things and support these great things in our school system. So I'm a lucky lady. Last but not least, Chairwoman Mary McRae and I took a little field trip up to Philadelphia recently for the National School Board Association, met with school boards from all over the country, and Ms. McRae actually gave a presentation on the work that we have been doing on equity that was attended by a lot of school board leaders from around the country. This was a follow-up to our winning the national award for our work, our district's work,
Breaking the Link.
Clayton's and Frank Barnes and the district's work on Breaking the Link report. So she shared all that we've been working on with the CTE progress, with the equity policy. We compared notes with other systems that are doing, that have equity policies that took actually longer, they've spent longer than we have. So I don't feel so bad about us taking 6 months. But anyways, she did a great job with that presentation. And I will just say that there were a lot of school board leaders there who were gobbling up what she had to share and were saying, tell us more, because as hard as this work is, there are folks around the country that are learning from us and following our lead. And a lot of times we are blazing a trail. And that was just very validating, and I wanted to share that experience as well. And with that, I will hand it off to you.
All right, and Ms. Ella Stewart, you were recognized as part of the CUBE part, and Myra wanted to make sure she sent your gifts to you as you're moving off of the steering committee. But I also want to say thank you to Dr. Frank Barnes and to Tracy for all of their hard work that they put in there. And Dr. Wilcox, when you can keep Frank at a minimum of 4.5 minutes for an opening for me, you have done your job. So Frank, thank you. I stood in the mirror and timed it myself. So you did a great job, Frank. I had to tell him under 5 minutes, I only have 5 minutes, Frank. So it was great. So I appreciate that, Frank.
My next task is board comments to 5 minutes. Just kidding.
I think and now I do want to highlight, Akeisha, I heard that our magnet department program was up for 30-plus nominations. So when you all go to, I think it's in Baltimore, when you all go, don't come home without some prizes, okay? All right, and that's for our magnet programs. But I also want to give a shout out to the beautiful ladies of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, specifically the Psi Mu Zeta chapter. They did a wonderful job at their scholarship luncheon honoring 3 students from our area high schools. One of them was Alejandra Gonzalez, from Harding University High School. Alejandra was one of their scholarship winners, and the question that these ladies had to write to was, what childhood book made the most impact on your life? And Alejandra's book was Junie B. Jones, and she gave her reasons why that book was her favorite, and it set a course of learning for her. The other student, Alejandra, is going to be attending Elon University. The next student was Kamaya Alderman, and she is from Zeb Vance High School, and her book was Horrible Harry and the Green Dragon. And I heard her explanation for it, and I tried to recall Harry and that dragon, but Harry was a very precocious little boy, so I don't know, but she said that she always gave her mom a fit because she always questioned everything, so I guess that was her book. Kamaya is going to be attending UNC Chapel Hill. Go Big Blue. Okay. And the last one was Miss Kirsten Roddy, who is a student at Mallet Creek High School. And Kirsten's book was The Skin I'm In. And if you've ever read that book, you know why Kirsten chose it, and she gave her explanation for that. And she's going to be attending Howard University. And those ladies were honored graciously by the ladies of Zeta Phi Beta. And that is all I'm going to report on, but we did have quite a few superintendents and board members that were seeking us out to learn what Charlotte Mecklenburg was doing next. So, you know, we may not get pats on the back at home, but we definitely get them when we're away. And without further ado, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Go in peace.